Welcome back to another episode of the Home Turf Podcast. This is episode 24, I believe. And today I got another wonderful guest, as I always do, this time from Auburn, Alabama. All right, tell us who you are and tell us what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Noah Griffith, assistant sports editor at the Plainsman. Um, and so right now I'm covering football, I'm covering men's and women's basketball, and just making sure we have all our sports coverage. And um, yeah.
All right, so I've been asking people this the last couple of weeks, but I want to ask this again. So, do you have like a close affiliation with Auburn growing up, or is Auburn just kind of where you ended up going to school? Because I get mixed answers on this all the time. I, for one, did not start out as a Texas A&M fan coming in. I just went to Texas A&M. Now, obviously being here for as long as I have, I'm now a Texas A&M fan. Although, I mean, I'm reporting unbiasedly, but tell us about like your history with Auburn.
So that's a great question for me. Um, I did not grow up an Auburn fan. I actually grew up, um, all of Auburn's probably gonna hate me for saying this. I grew up a Bama fan. Um, I'm from Phoenix City, Alabama, which is about, 45 minutes from Auburn. Um, and I went to community college and I just transferred to Auburn just because, it was close to home. A lot of my friends went there. Um, I chose journalism, but really I didn't even know if I liked it at that point. I just started writing and it just grew into a passion for me. Like, I wanted to go to Bama pretty much my whole life, but, I was diagnosed with a disability at age 16 and, moving further away just wasn't a good option. So,
Yeah. I'm very happy that you found a passion in journalism. I love being able to share that passion with other people. So I'm happy to be able to have you on here today. I'm very excited to go further talking about Auburn football with you. But before we get any further into this podcast, I do need to shout out our sponsor. This podcast is, as always, sponsored by Hitch. So for all your ride sharing needs, make sure that you check out Hitch. If you're needing to travel across the state, it's like Uber, but it's for longer distances. For 30% off your first 4 rides, up to $50 each ride. Use code Aggie News 3, that's spelled AGGIENEWS 3. And I'm going to say thank you again to Hitch for sponsoring this episode. And now let's kick it off for Auburn weekend. All right, now tell me a little bit about, how have you felt about Auburn season so far? Because I know both of us, we're kind of at the bottom of the SEC West right now. I don't think this has gone, how either of us thought that it would go, or maybe it is a little bit how you thought it would go. Brian Harsin just got fired not too long ago. Just kind of give us a little bit of a season in review for how things have gone down.
well, man, I don't even know where to start. I originally predicted Auburn to go, I think, 8-4, and obviously that was my best case scenario. That's what I put in the paper. I really thought there was more talent there with the transfers coming in. I knew the quarterback situation was going to be a mess. Um, but I thought we had a lot of good skill position players at running back and at receiver. So I didn't see us sitting at 3-6 coming into this game. But with that being said, I feel really good about the program and where it's going right now. Um, with the change in head coach last week, there was a whole different feel to it. It feels like a new team, to be honest. And to see them play full game and compete for 4 quarters plus, it was a big change. And it wasn't just a change in energy, it was a change in efficiency.
I mean, you often see people talk about that kind of contrary to, traditional logic. Teams kind of tend to play a little bit better sometimes immediately after the firing of a head coach. because you got that new fire under you. It's like, oh, there's a change in everything. We're going to put it on for our family and whatnot. And so I'm definitely interested to kind of see how that goes for Auburn going forward. So let's kind of look at the offense first. So I tend to start off with the offense. How do you think that? I don't know if you've done really any preparation on A&M's team defensively, but could you kind of talk a little bit about Auburn's offense and maybe how it matches up with A&M?
Mm. So yeah, I know Texas A&M's passing defense is the best in the conference. Um, and the way we played last year was very like run heavy. We ran it twice as much as we passed. And Ashford went 7 for 22 for under 100 yards. I think my one worry is that we're going to get a little bit predictable, and A&M's going to be able to stack the box because they have those talented corners, and Auburn doesn't have a lot of firepower at receiver. They have Kenneth Brown emerging, and Coy Moore, but um, I feel like they're going to be able to shut down the receivers and keep them from getting separation. So I'm a little bit worried. Um, they've got to be able to run the ball somehow, some way. You know.
Yeah, I look at Texas A&M's team, and it's very beat up right now. A lot of injuries along the defense, specifically offensive line specifically. But I think about how A&M has performed against the pass, but they've been poor against the run. But I kind of like what you said about that predictability. I think that's an interesting word to use because if Auburn seems like they're just going to be a team that just runs the ball, can A&M afford to, kind of sell out on that run defense? Because you got players like Bryce Anderson, who should be coming back after missing last game with the flu. I don't know where Antonio Johnson is in terms of health. He's missed the last few games with an injury. You look at a guy like Jacoby Matthews, who played really well last week at the safety nickel position, even Sam Matthews, who played really well at the linebacker safety position. And so you kind of look at these guys that A&M has, and even with the injuries, you can still kind of stack the box with a lot of talent because A&M doesn't really have a lack of talent. So if you were talking about that, you think that Auburn might get a little bit predictable when it comes to the run game. Kind of talk a little bit about, the weapons that Auburn does have in the running game. Because I know there are two really good running backs on that roster. And you already mentioned the quarterback. He's also got some really good legs.
Mm. Well, yeah. I mean, talk about Tank Bigsby and Jerquez Hunter. That's a two-headed horse right there. And then I think the A&M's got to have its spy man on Robbie Ashford at all times. I mean, the one thing I do like about that offense is I feel like they're playing to their strengths. They played to their strengths last week for the first time all year. Um, Robbie had two rushing touchdowns. Turquez had one. Turquez Hunter had one. Dang, Bixby had one. But I feel like the guy behind them is, an emerging star as well. Damari Alston, a running back. He's really physical. He runs hard. He's a true freshman. He only has 13 carries on the year, but when he does get those carries, he's gonna do something with them. Um, Tank leads the team in rushing with 676 yards, and then Robbie follows with 500 plus, which is pretty impressive for a quarterback. And he hasn't even played the whole season, so you know, he's going places.
And
Um,
you talked about, the two-headed monster. What do you think that Bigsby provides and Hunter provides? Like, is it kind of the traditional, lightning and thunder, where like one of the guys is, the heavy hitter and one guy's the quicker guy, or what's going on with the two of them?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think they're both pretty physical when they get the ball in their hands, but I think the one thing I would say is Tank. When you hand him the ball, he has that vision to get downfield. Um, it's really really tough to bring him down when he when he hits a gap, there's no stopping him. But with Jarquez, I feel like there's multiple ways you can use him besides just hitting him the ball. He has really good hands. He's a multifaceted back, and this skill set is pretty much complete. I'm not saying Tank can catch the ball. He can, but Jarquez is often used more as like a halfback, and that you'll see Tank get his carries from handoffs.
Yeah, I talked about when I did the Arkansas podcast that I think the two most aptly named players in college football are probably Bumper Pool and Tank Bigsby because they both play like their names. Tank nickname. So like he's called Tank because he plays like a tank, and Bumper Pool is always bumping everybody around because he's such a good tackler. So I think definitely there are a lot of exciting players to look forward to on that Auburn offense. Is there anybody that maybe you haven't mentioned yet that you want to kind of bring up that maybe people at A&M should know about?
Yeah, I think one thing you can definitely know is our starting right tackle. I believe, a 5-year senior was rolled out for the year after last week. That's gonna be a big hit. All the coaches and players were like heartbroken about it in their press conference this week. So that's gonna be tough to overcome. That offensive line has just been really injury riddled.
Now, kind of to flip the script a little bit and look at Auburn's defense. So, for example, you just talked about, an offensive line being beat up. A&M's offensive line is pretty beat up as well. I believe we currently have three offensive linemen that are out for the season, that were involved throughout the season. So not just kind of, secondary guys, people who have been involved. So could you kind of talk about maybe what are the strengths on the Auburn defense? So you
Mm.
look at Auburn's defense, and I believe they are the second worst scoring defense in the SEC. But that obviously doesn't mean that there isn't talent on the team. I specifically think about Owen Papo as one of those guys, but kind of talk about what is the strong suit of that Auburn defense.
Well, first of all, I think they really can be dangerous to a quarterback. Um, Especially Derek Hall, senior team captain, has 6.5 sacks in the year. Um, and they're finally forcing turnovers because of getting to the quarterback. They had 2 strip sacks last week, as well as the interception. That was, forced by quick throw on a quarterback about to get hit. So I feel like they can really wreck offense, and there's really some sure tackling, as you mentioned. Owen Papo at linebacker, he leads the team in tackles, and then like just really getting into the backfield, you know, more than they have all season. Last week, they had 10 tackles for loss, which is season high. So like I said, it's not just playing tough, it's not just playing together under a new coach, it's being more efficient, and they're finding ways to disrupt plays.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Derek Hall. That's another one of the guys that's on that Auburn defense that's really good. But then you also have guys like, for example, Eku Leota, you have Kobe Wooden. You have a lot of talent on that defensive line. And so do you think that maybe a key for the game would be with a freshman quarterback likely going to play his second start as a college quarterback in freshman Connor Wigman? Do you think that that could be a key to Auburn's success in the game is, utilizing that defensive front and getting back to them?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I do also want to mention that Kulieta is out for the year with the torn pectoral.
Hmm. Okay, so I missed that one then.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. That's a very good defensive line there. And so I'm interested to kind of see how that goes down. Is there any other, so let's kind of look at Connor Wigman again. And one thing that he was able to do against Ole Miss, which was the last time he played since he didn't play against Florida because he also had the flu. If you look at how he performed against Ole Miss, he was doing a really good job of kind of moving the ball downfield through the air. Do you think that Auburn will be able to have the guys in pass defense to kind of stop him?
Um, I think that really depends on the front and whether they get to him and whether they force quick throws. Um, in front of a sold out crowd at Jordan is going to be loud. Um, and it remains to see how he can handle that kind of situation. I believe the game he came into, Wagman, was at College Station. Is that right? Okay.
He came in at the very end of the South Carolina game, and then he got his first start in College Station against Ole Miss. So yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think that'll be a factor in whether the front can get in his pace. But if he has a clean pocket, I think he has the weapons to, tear apart Auburn's defense, to be honest. Auburn secondary is not it has talent. There's Donovan Coffin at safety, there's DJ James at corner. There's some talent there, but like I said, if he has a clean pocket, I don't know how they're gonna lock down Evan Stewart and Moose. I don't see it happening.
I'm very excited to see Evan Stewart and Moose teaming up with Connor Wigman again because you look at that trio and you have to think, that's the future of Texas A&M football. And so I'm very excited to see how they can do in their second start together after how they performed against Ole Miss. So kind of looking ahead at this game, what do you think are your expectations for how things will go down? Do you think that Ole Miss, sorry, do you think that Auburn will be able to capitalize on certain aspects, or do you think maybe they'll have to fall short in some places? What do you expect to see?
Uh, I expect a good turnout in front of a sold out crowd. I think Robbie Osford hasn't turned the ball over the past 2 weeks, and he's looking better every week, despite the not so good passing numbers from last week. Um, I think he knows he has to step up this week throwing the ball, and I think he will be able to do that as long as he can keep the ball and Auburn can keep creating turnovers. I think I think the potential is there. Um, I think my score prediction was 38-20 Auburn, which I can see it being a lot closer than that. But I think with the way things are trending, they're hot and they're ready to come out and perform.
You already beat me to the punch on the whole prediction part of the show. So, good job on you for that one. But yeah, I think definitely the key for either team would be A&M would want to be able to finally fix their running game woes and be able to slow down Auburn, basically force them to throw the ball as much as possible. Like you said, take advantage of the predictability. Whereas I think kind of that key for Auburn to win would be kind of controlling the clock because they want to they know that maybe they won't be able to stop the offense to the extent that they want. So if they hold the ball longer and they can execute when they have the ball and hope that A&M makes a few mistakes, then that's kind of the way that things will go down. Now, I definitely do think, though, as you mentioned, I think this game will be close, especially because both teams, they're going to have to come out swinging because one loss for either side eliminates the teams from bowl contention. And these are two programs that do not want to be eliminated from bowl contention. That is kind of a baseline for expectations for a season. So I would say personally, I mean, I don't know if this is biased. I think that A&M ends up coming out and taking the win, but I do think that it's going to be kind of close, like you said. I would probably predict it to be somewhere around, I think with the way that I haven't prepared a score prediction before, but with the way that Auburn controls the ball, I'm going to say that it ends up somewhere around like 27-21 or 27-24, something like that.
That's fair. And I'll say, like, I think it'll come down to turnovers, but I think that's probably the key to the game. Auburn didn't win the turnover battle all year until against Arkansas. They won 1-0, and then Mississippi State they won 3-0. Um, if they lose the turnover battle, I think A&M will come out with the win. I think that's probably the key, like to controlling the field position, like they did against State, controlling the clock and controlling the ball.
Yeah, I'm absolutely super excited for this game this weekend, as I always am for A&M football. I'm gonna say thank you again for coming onto this podcast. It was a blast talking to you and getting to know a little bit more about Auburn football. Hopefully, everyone that listened will be able to know more about Auburn football as well. And while y'all are here, make sure that you also check out the other battalion podcasts. That includes Calculated Culture, our Life and Arts podcast, and then also the Bat Signal, which is our news podcast. So make sure you check those out. Make sure you check out Noah Griffith too. Let people know where they can find you, whether that's social media, whether that's places you're working at. Just let people know where they can find you if they're interested.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is @NoahGG01, and I work for the Auburn Plainsman, so you can on any social media you can the AU Plainsman. Um, yeah,
It was an absolute blast having you on again. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all next time when we take on UMass, I believe. So, first non conference game in a long time. That'll be kind of interesting for me to try and put together, figuring out how to reach out to someone from UMass's newspaper because I'm not familiar with them at all. But I'm excited to see how the rest of the season pans out. Thank you again. Excited to see where Auburn goes, and I will see you all next time.
thank you.